Yep. No pressure. It's fun.
Good evening. Welcome to the October 16th Educational Programs and Services Committee meeting. I'm your chair, Ellen McCormick, and I have with me board members Trina Sharpsmith and J.P. Prego. I also have ex officio Melanie Cunningham, and there's a couple of board members in the audience as well. Also our esteemed colleagues in curriculum. Could I get a approval of the August 21st, 2025 motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Any opposed? Great. Minutes passed. All right, number 2. I assume we're going in order today? Yeah. All right. Number 2, building data discussion. We'll start with the 4th and 5th grade center.
All right, hi everybody.
Hi.
I'm Randy, for those of you who don't know.
Thanks for being here.
That's what the 4-5 Center. I'm glad to be able to share some of our data with everyone. It is a little different from last year. There are some, last year we presented elementary at the elementary level mid-November. So by that time we had our school report card data as well, which I presented. And also last year we had science data to present, which we do not have this year because this year's science-based essays were utilized for benchmarking. So we don't have numbers related to proficiency in advanced and things like that, which is kind of a shame because we really wanted to see how we were measuring up with the new STEEL standards versus prior years. Prior years it was very positive, so it would have been nice to know if we were on the same track or not, but we don't. So I am going to share some academic data specific to PSSAs and PBOS. This past school year was the first time, as you know, everything was all digital. So that definitely was a challenge and a change for our students. In the end, the area that I was most concerned about was reading, and it came through. Our students overall did grow, so we were positive to see that, happy to see that, and it was positive. But you'll see where my concerns, kind of came out. We talk a lot at our level, the 4-5 Center, about interacting with text, marking text up. And on a Chromebook, it is not, you can't do it, and it came through. And so it's, kind of back to the drawing board a little bit. As we go through the slides, the first slide there gives our ELA PSSA longitudinal data. So I'm starting it right out. As you can see, in 5th grade's up top, highlighted in yellow there and gold there is our percent advanced and proficient. 5th grade remained the same between 2024 and 2025. 4th grade, last year we had a large gain of 14%, and then we reverted back 12%.
Do you think we have, does the electronic part?
I'm going to go down a road that I'm not going to make excuses. We need to do a better job.
Okay.
Might there be parts of it? Absolutely. I think it is, especially when it comes to ELA with, like I said, marking up text and passages. You can't do it on a computer. And that's what we teach at our level. And it is a shame, especially knowing how hard our 4th grade teachers were working and how excited they were with all their efforts paying off in 2024 to then revert back in 2025. So. But this is where we're at, and this is the new game that you have to play when it comes to PSSAs, and we'll continue to move forward and improve upon it. 5th grade remained the same, but I do, if you can go back to them, I do look at that differently because our 4th graders in 2024 were at 67%. That same group of students in 5th grade came in at 56%. So to me, although we stayed the same longitudinally, with that group of students, it went back. So, that was where we are looking at it again, because we were anticipating higher results based on our end-of-year MAP testing. So our measure of academic performance at the end of the year had our students slightly above 70% being predicted to be advanced or proficient.
Wow.
So when we got the results, there was disappointment, but you go back to the drawing board and you try to continuously improve, which is kind of the framework that we've been built on at the 4-5 Center. You go on to the next slide. It breaks down each domain within ELA The one area that we were glad to see was in text-dependent analysis based on all the work that we've done over the last 3 years with how we teach TDAs and incorporate evidence-based writing across the curriculum, how we've moved it in within units, started piecing some of that information from the get-go in 4th and 5th grade rather than waiting for a separate unit later in the year. We were glad to see that that did not go down, but across the board, you know, you look at literature, conventions of standards, craft instruction, key ideas and details, they did go down. But that was evident from the prior screen as well. What is interesting, if you go to the next slide though, on our PVOS growth measures, this year, the state gave us predictive measures with PVOS. Obviously, PVOS is related to growth. It is probably the biggest area that I look at because from year to year, are our students meeting expected growth or are they not? Or are they exceeding? So we were glad to see though in 4th grade, our students just missed above, and we met even though we had that decrease of about 8% in the percent proficient in advanced. And then in 5th grade, we were still in well above. So that's that measure though. Students continue at the beginning of the year, how are they growing by the end of the year? Are they meeting state expectations? Are they below it or are they exceeding it? So we were happy to see that they were exceeding it, especially in 5th grade. In term though, there's still work to be done, which we'll get into in a little bit. The next grouping of slides is related to math. On the flip side, the efforts that we put in math, you know, are paying dividends, both in 5th grade, which is up top, and in 4th grade, which is down bottom. We had a significant growth in. I was worried still about utilizing the Chromebooks for our testing. But as you started thinking about what the difference was, in math, it's one question at a time with its ABCD choices. In ELA, it's a large passage, questions on the side, you know, your Chromebook's slightly bigger than a notepad, and they're trying to scroll up and down to get back to where the questions are from. So I think that little bit of focus in math did go a long way versus ELA. You know, but again, we're not here to make excuses. We got to work within the game we got, right? That this is the game we're now playing when it comes to PSSAs, and frankly, it's how everybody looks at schools and districts and so on. So
But Bart, let's
still got to work at it.
because to your point, that reading part, you know, kids, their gears have to revert to a different, you know, like what you're explaining, the format for the math, format.
Yeah.
That has effect.
It has a large impact. There's no doubt.
Like, do we know when we're going to get the PA numbers?
Last year, we received the PA numbers in November.
Okay.
So it was around roughly the time that we got our report card results.
Because I'll be curious if that jumps.
I'm also curious to see if across the state, if the advanced and proficient numbers are down. I don't know, you know, I won't pretend to know, but I know the impact, looking at, you know, going in and out of rooms when students are taking the PSSAs, I saw the difference. And it's even different than what our map testing looks like for reading. The map testing, you have your passage, and then it's the questions. It's not like they're splitting the screen. So even the format within map seemed a little more conducive to students taking a test. But again, it's the game we have to play.
Yeah, I didn't pay close enough attention, I'm sorry, to the PA and the English. Are we still well above in English like we are here in math?
If you go back with our growth, in 4th grade, we're just missing above in terms of meeting their expected growth play.
Sorry, go back one more.
But
That one. That's one.
we are still above where the state was in 2024.
Okay. But not as, I mean, it's more significant, it seemed, in our math.
In 4th grade in 2024 than 2025.
Thank you.
On the, what is PSSA, is it?
Mhm.
Do they have those tools to highlight and talk to the text and like,
So you can highlight,
yeah,
which, you know, it does come into play. It's not the same as pencil and paper. That's the main, you can underline on it. But again, for instance, when our 4th and 5th graders are looking at passages, we literally have them number every paragraph. We then have them circle in words, underline phrases, highlighting things that they think are important. It's a process that they are taught, and we just simply call it marking up the text. And
Yeah.
so they remember and can go back to and refer to. It's a little different, again, to highlight on.
So testing digitally, this is required like next year or something, right?
So it was not required last year, it was kind of like the practice
Okay,
of it.
all right.
This year, as of this, into this school year, 2026, across the state, it's required.
So are the teachers intending to use practice tests that are digital for reading?
Yes, and we did last year. The format, though, hasn't been mirrored
Okay,
of PSSAs.
that's not easy.
So back to the math side, PSSA longitudinal data is there. If you go to the next screen, across the board, our anchor achievement was positive with growth, which was really nice to see. If you remember me speaking last year, and it's going to continue, we made a very conscientious effort to focus on numbers and operations to base 10, both in core and in our interventions. We also continued our focus with basic computation skills. And in the end, I think that focus has made a significant difference in what our math has looked like as we continue to grow in an upward trend.
When did you start that focus?
Last school year. So our software learning program in math last year was Freckle. So we developed a Freckle flow chart where all students had to reach grade level in number of operations in base 10 in order to move on to numbers and operations in base fractions, and then they moved on to algebraic thinking. So it was a whole process with that. Along with that, there was daily computation practice for your basic facts, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Let's face it, those are the kind of the heart of everything, to be honest. And then within our interventions, the students that we identified were based on our map data from the beginning of the year that scored lowest in numbers and operations base 10. So then all of the efforts there were also focused on numbers and operations base 10. So and you can see, across the board, that's the foundation of mathematics. It's very difficult to do algebraic thinking if your numbers and operations skills are not strong. It really made a difference and an impact, and it's something that we're going to continue to do. The difference this year is we're not using, which I'll get to some of that, but we're not using Freckle. We're moving to iReady as we've adopted the new Ready resource. So our staff are using iReady for their learning software pathways. And what was nice to hear from the Ready company was that the way their program is designed is that all students, here when we shot the dart at the board, they have it designed that all students have to get the grade level of numbers and operations in base 10 before they can go down other pathways. So that just confirmed a lot of the thoughts that we had that weren't really out there, so it was, that affirmation was really nice to see. As you go to the next slide, it'll show PVOS, predicted PVOS scores in math. They're both, green is meeting, light blue is above, dark blue is well above. You get a double dark blue, then you're well above, which is really nice to see. So, again, knowing, because some of this, you're taking very specific steps to continuously improve on a year-by-year basis, and you never know if those efforts are going to, kind of pay off. So it was really nice in regards to our math department to see the difference that was made. And it's a trend that we're going to continue with. As you go to the next slide, we start, it outlines our goals as a building, and then it'll start outlining, I did specifically some of our action steps for our math department and our ELA department. Our goals, our vision and belief statements are all circled around these two goals. The very first goal is that foundation of any school. You have to have a safe and supportive school climate for students to learn. So we don't forget it, and it's listed as number 1 for a reason. Academic instruction and all the learning in the world isn't going to occur in a classroom that isn't positive in nature, safe in nature, and where students feel secure about their learning. So we continue to keep that at 1, and we'll always keep that at number 1. And then number 2 falls into that academic and how you go about continuously improving. My staff is probably sick of hearing me every day to day. It's a slide that we put up, it's called continuous improvement, and we review it every single time. And it's knowing that every group of students that comes to the grade level, to the school, to the classroom is different. Every group we've had in the 6 years we've existed has been different. They have different strengths and they have different needs. And it's understanding that you have to address what they need and not look at them as a generalized thing over the, I did this 10 years ago, it's gonna work now. It's not the case anymore. You gotta continuously improve, and you do it based and sounded in data to find out what are the strengths and what are the needs for the children.
I always wondered about that part, like class to class, like as they travel together and move through the different grades, the characteristics of each.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like probably has a lot.
Without a doubt, they have different strengths. Some are, they'll come to us with higher academic needs, or they'll come to us with less academic needs. And it does cycle, where, I don't know the right words here, but it definitely cycles where every group has different strengths. There's no doubt about it. Some might come to you with big, stronger computation skills, and no, it may not even be a grade level. You'll find pockets where, it goes back to the classroom teachers that they may have had that emphasize certain skills over others. It could be in computation skills, it could be in writing skills. And it just goes back to where has the emphasis been prior to their arrival. But to us, being a transition building at the 4th and 5th grade center, the prior 4 years are really gonna go a long ways determining, what strengths they're gonna possess when they get to us.
So, 5th graders this year, were they in kindergarten for COVID? Or are we through that? Are
So
you
this is
through
the
that?
6th year. They were in kindergarten the first full year of COVID.
Okay.
So they're the group that, when we were hybrid and all those types of things, they were in kindergarten.
5th grade is started, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so 4th grade
Should be the
should
first
be back
group
to,
that
I mean,
didn't
I don't want to
have
say normal, but.
age-based
that.
school in COVID.
Right, okay. Interesting.
And their their background's gonna look slightly different too, because, a lot of students, as we all know, my own children alone, they went to daycare, right?
Yeah.
Well, daycare also taught some foundational type
True.
of skills.
Good point.
And some of it is just how to socialize with one another, which go back to that first goal up there. If that's difficult for a lot of children, it makes it for a difficult classroom. And, again, every group has their needs, and, we're learning a lot about 4th grade very quickly and what needs that they may have. And you kind of see some of it.
Yeah.
So Art, as the classes go through, could you also note the athletically strong
Yes.
class?
Yes, absolutely.
Good to know.
Our 5th grade group has a very large population of students who are focused on athletics. It's ironic, the senior football class, and I don't know if it's the one making the difference for upper football success this school year. When they were in 8th grade, I have the t-shirt, they were the undefeated group. Yeah, you keep going back, you see trends that happen. That group also, where my son went to elementary school, they, in 2nd grade, lost one game and then didn't lose a game for like a while till, I think, the semifinals of their 6th grade year. They lost in 2nd grade to this class. So you see things as they cycle through, right? You never know. Every year is a new year with a new beginning, right? And it's a new opportunity. The next couple slides, the next 4 slides, I have 2 slides on math, 2 slides on ELA. You're going to see a lot of commonality. We're preparing since last year to implement standards-based report card at the 4-5 Center. Not this school year, but next year in 4th grade, we will utilize the standards-based report card. So a lot of efforts have gone on in the background related to aligning our assessments to mirror standards-based PSSAs, which in turn has had a large impact on our instruction and the practice that we're providing our children. And it's all positive. All right, and I say that, trust me, in a very positive way. We are also in math, obviously going through the adoption of a new resource, a new learning software, and so there's a lot of things that are happening all at once. And then on the flip side for our ELA brethren, our ELA department, they are going through the process of identifying a new resource. But in the meantime, and it'll show one of the next couple slides, they had to realign and rewrite essentially their curriculum to be standards-based aligned, still using benchmark literacy, which may or may not be the chosen resource that'll come into early adoption next school year. So there's a lot of things happening through it all. I'm very thankful, and I've said this to my staff repeatedly, for how flexible and collaborative they are. No matter the challenge, no matter what is coming their way, they work together professionally and collaboratively, and in a communal way to for the betterment of the good. So I'm very thankful for that. But some of that is what you're seeing in there, right from the get-go, school-wide shift towards standards-based alignment, initiating development of the standards-based report card, continuing progress with the curriculum writing at both grade levels to prepare for the new resource. The fourth bullet is something that we have done since I've been principal and the entity of the 4-5 Center has begun. And that's the review of continuum of standards and eligible contents prior to the units being taught. So for instance, in math, we're prepping to take our end of unit assessment and move into the next unit. So this past PLC cycle, the first thing that was put in front of them are the standards for that accompanying unit, as well as the unit assessment. What are the questions they're going to be asked, making sure they understand what practice their children have to have in order to be successful on that unit assessment. Because if the unit assessment is good and standards align and mirrors what's going to be expected of them on your state assessment, that opportunity then needs to occur in the classroom to practice and prepare for that. So that's been a lot of the work that we've consistently done within our PLCs, which again goes back to the level of collaboration that occurs within the 4-5 Center. I'm very thankful for that staff. Computation and math fluency continues to be a need. At the beginning of this school year, we gave an Acadians benchmark assessment, both grade levels. Now that assessment, I'm going to reframe it here a little bit. It's based on end of the year. So they're taking it in September, but a lot of the skills they're not learning until the year progresses. So by the end of the year, you're expecting different results. But the beginning of the year, both grade levels were in the 30-something percentile that were meeting grade level expectations. So now turn that around at the end of the year, we hit 76 percentile and 74 percentile for both of those two grade levels. So again, you have to learn how to divide in order to do a division problem. You have to learn how to add fractions with common denominators or non-common denominators in order to do it. You have to learn how to subtract mixed numbers in order to do it. So, but to us, it continues to be an area that we need to make sure our children are fluent in their basic computation skills, so that practice continues. Go on to the next slide. It speaks a lot about iReady diagnostic and personalized learning pathways. We transitioned from Freckle as our base learning software program for our children that is individualized based on their diagnostic to iReady. We did that in a year in advance for all of our staff so that next year when all of them are utilizing Ready within their classrooms, at least this large component of it, they have all the understanding they need. So the focus can be on the whole group lessons and within the teacher-led stations. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Because that way, it's lessening the overload that's going to happen next year as they're all learning. Within that area that I'll mention again is within interventions. as we pulled out what students would be in our intervention groups for tier 2 and then into tier 3 if they're not having success, again, we targeted students who were having difficulty in numbers and operations. You know, that fundamental approach. We go over to ELA on the next 2 slides. Right from the get-go, standards aligned and increased rigor, the development of a standards-based report card, the development, as I mentioned already, of a 4th grade standards aligned benchmark literacy curriculum. One of the areas that I'll highlight within that relates to the guided reading text being used during guided reading with the teacher-led station. So you have your whole group reading lesson, your shared reading lesson with the whole class. You're then breaking off, and students are rotating through their stations or centers or their must-do, may-do boards. Within that time, teachers are pulling small groups of students to them in their teacher-led station to review those skills, but with a different text than they saw in the whole group. Benchmark literacy had a fundamental philosophy of utilizing texts that were on the students' reading level, not their grade level. So as we looked at our curriculum, we identified that as a gap. Because if their students, you know, if a student in 5th grade is reading on a 3rd grade level, if they're not being exposed to 5th grade text, while there's a natural scaffold there, which is the teacher to support them, when are they going to get that exposure? So to us, that was a big difference that we made in rewriting the curriculum that we're utilizing for our 4th grade. So that's done for 4th grade, and they're processing through while we're now writing it for 5th grade. So that time will come, and that's what the next bullet is. If you go further, again, the maintain the PLC cycle of inquiry, starting with what are the standards for the upcoming unit, what is the assessment, what are the questions, what does the practice need to look like in order for them to be successful on it. If your assessment is strong and the instruction aligns to it, that success will be there. Go on to the next slide. It breaks down, I'll talk quickly, STAR reading assessment and Freckle software. I'm going to give that a little bit more time, but I'll talk quickly about TDAs. As we saw in our data both in 4th and 5th grade, that is the one area we definitely continue to have growth, which is great. We continue to incorporate evidence-based writing from Unit 1 on. Prior to last year, it literally was its own unit later towards the second half of the school year, and we identified that as a weakness in regards to how our benchmark literacy program was set up, you know, kind of revised it, and we'll continue to do so. With that, we have several new ELA teachers in our 4th and 5th grade, so there's 10 total ELA teachers. 3 of our teachers are new, either new to the district or new to that department. So to us, it was also important to make sure they had a solid understanding of evidence-based writing and TDAs. So in this upcoming October, November in-service days, with the help of Mrs. Bass, we were able to get Carrie Rhodes from the IU to come in and to kind of give a refresher course on TDAs, which is great. So some of those areas that we know we need to build up strengths within our teachers, you know, is certainly identified as one of them. So thank you to Mrs. Bass for helping us to secure that. Up top, now I'm going to go back to STAR reading assessment and Freckle software. I mentioned Freckle for math earlier. We still have Freckle for reading, and we're still utilizing it. We are coordinating it very specifically, though, to focus on key ideas and details. We've identified that area as the foundation to mirror the numbers and operations of base 10 in math. That's the foundation. And in order to be able to write evidence-based writing samples in TDAs, you need to have that understanding. So we've identified that as the focus area. So as we developed kind of a flow chart for ELA, that's where it's grounded in again. The second thing with that, this year is the first year after some time of searching for the STAR reading assessment. So while STAR is nice, MAP will give you information based on domains. STAR brings it from domain to standard to skills within the standard. And this is the first time we're getting that data in our teachers' hands in order to identify those students with the strengths and the needs in certain areas to be able to support them. So as they're pulling their guided reading teacher-led stations, it's being determined based on their success with key ideas and details based on the STAR assessment. So again, our concept of continual improvement continues, but it's grounded in data, and it's grounded in student data.
When do they do that assessment, the STAR?
They will do it at the beginning of the year and then prior to the end of each trimester.
Okay.
So that's also a little bit different than MAP, which is what we were using previously. MAP was beginning of the year and the middle of the year,
Yeah.
and it gives us a chance, are we making the impact that we're looking for in our students?
In your results for the PSSA, when you have the bars up, it looked like everything went up.
In MAP?
No, in ELA. In informational text,
Mhm.
in ELA. The fiction or the literary text went down along with vocab. And it just seems like the pendulum swung the other way. Like there was a huge emphasis maybe 8 years ago or so on informational text. And it looks like from your data that it's just kind of, whoop, it's gone the other way. Because if you can't interpret literary text, you are going to struggle with vocabulary interpretation, and you are going to struggle with your reading analysis. So it kind of all hinges on that. So I guess you're seeing that too.
We did see that, and it's funny because we just had our day-to-day conversation there last Monday. And fourth grade, when we rewrote the curriculum for it and how everything's the units, we now are going literature, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction, fiction, so that that balance is there. In fifth grade, they identified the same weakness when they looked at their grade level data, that information was higher than literature. So in turn, it's the same concept. Okay, well, where we need to implement more literature, so more of that storytelling, that more authentic literature, not informational based. So it's interesting that you said it, because that same pattern has existed. And if you think about informational text, they're also consuming that science. They're also
Exactly.
consuming it in
Every
social
other
studies.
class.
They're consuming it in mathematics. You know, so it's making sure that we also have that balance within ELA.
Yeah.
Key ideas and details in literature looks different than informational text. We're talking themes versus main ideas and stuff.
When like headings, subtitles,
Yep.
like it's different. It's a different way to read.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you all for your
very much.
time.
Thanks, Arden.
Glad to share.
Really appreciate
Sorry
all
if
the
I
work
took too
and-
long.
No, you're good.
Working on
Good. You
that.
guys have any other thoughts, questions for
Class,
middle
you know.
school?
Fifth grade got strong.
You're good? Okay. All right. Middle school, hi. Welcome. Ah.
You guys are working.
So I've got a lot of data to share. So let's start with what we see currently with PSSA. And one of the things that I really think is important to highlight is what is the PSSA? So if you look at the purple box on the right side, it's a state accountability test that's given once a year. And it compares our students to state expectations, right? Where we are at the end of the year. Consider it like it's a final exam. I mean, think about it that way, right? We're administering this test in May. How are our students doing and what do they know and are they able to demonstrate? Last year, our sixth grade students, 54.8% of our sixth grade students, so that's this year's current seventh grade class, were proficient and advanced. The state average was 53%. So we're right about there. We've got work to do, clearly. You'll see that across the board. But we're right about there. In seventh grade, we were at 49% proficient and advanced on our ELA test last year. State average was 53.4. So we were performing a little below the state average. Those students, last year's seventh graders, are this year's eighth graders. So we'll continue, we'll talk about things that we're gonna do to really target some of the needs of those students. In eighth grade, our students were at almost 62% proficient and advanced on the eighth grade PSSA last year versus the state average of about 52%. And I think it's important to share that in 2024, the 8th grade PSSA score, proficient and advanced for upper PERC, was 57.5%. So we've made some pretty significant growth from one year to the next. Different group of students, but improvement nonetheless in 8th grade. So I'm kind of presenting my longitudinal data a little differently than Art did, but I think it's worth taking a look at this. So obviously we don't have scores, we have no idea, we haven't administered the PSSA this year in 2026, so that's to be determined. But the current 9th graders, when they came to us in 6th grade and took the 6th grade ELA PSSA, 65% of the students in 6th grade, so this is now the same group of students, they were proficient and advanced. In 7th grade, that number was 65.5% proficient and advanced, and then in 8th grade, we saw a little bit of a decline at 61.6%. Our current 8th graders, you'll see when they came in 6th grade, they were at 54.8%, and we took a dip in 7th grade. Now, what I think is really interesting is that when you look at the 6th grade test, so if you look almost on like that angle, like the 6th graders in 2022 versus the 6th grade class in 2023 versus the 6th grade class in 2024, the results were a little, they dropped, right? From 6th grade to 7th, I'm sorry, from 6th grade in the 2023 to 6th grade in 2024. And then they've been pretty consistent in 6th grade for the last 2 years. Okay. Let's talk math for a second. So we're still talking about the PSSA for math. In 6th grade last year, our students, almost 50% of our students in 6th grade math were proficient and advanced versus the state average of about 37%. In 7th grade, 35% of our students were proficient and advanced on the 7th grade PSSA versus a state average of about 34%. And then if we look at 8th grade, we've got close to 60% of our 8th graders last year were proficient and advanced versus a state average of less than 30%. So I'm excited about what that says about what we're doing right in 8th grade.
What's the state doing?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
yeah. Now, what I would also say is that if we don't even talk about the Keystone for a second, in 2024, our 8th grade proficient and advanced on the math PSSA was only 43%. So we grow 17 percentage points in 1 year, different group of students. But I think one of the things that I've learned here at Upper Perk Middle School is that we have implemented our CPM curriculum with fidelity in 8th grade. So I think we're reaping the benefits over time with the implementation of that program at that level. Which is really great news. Our Keystone scores, 86.1% of our 7th and 8th grade students who took the Algebra 1 Keystone in Algebra 1 were proficient and advanced versus a state average of about 42%. But you would expect that because it's our middle school Algebra 1 students, and that's a state average that's inclusive of students at the 9th grade or 10th grade level, depending on what grade level you're taking the Algebra 1 Keystone in if you're at high school also. So you would expect our 7th and 8th grade Algebra 1 Keystone scores to be exceptional. And then if we look at the longitudinal data, again, same group of students. So if we look at our current 9th grade class, 49% of them were proficient or advanced in 6th grade in 23, about 47% in 2024 in 7th grade, and we, again, 60% last year in 8th grade on the PSSA, which is, again, pretty phenomenal, especially in comparison to the state average for 8th grade. Our 8th grade class, current 8th grade class in 6th grade, they were at 40% proficient and advanced in 6th grade, and then last year we dipped to 35% proficient and advanced. And our current 7th graders last year, as 6th graders when they took the PSSA, were at about 50% proficient and advanced. So we've got work to do. We've got work to do. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that, but I'll piggyback on what Art said a minute ago about the science field test. We did not receive scores for PSSA for the science, because they've moved from the NGSS standards to the STEEL standards. So last year was more or less a field test year where they started to create, like they're using the data that they received from last year's science PSSA to create this upcoming year's PSSA. So we don't have any data to share. What I can say from a school perspective is internally, our assessments that we're using for science, we are making them domains, like content-specific assessments. So whereas they've been domain-specific, we've been looking to see what those standards are that students need to master at the end of 8th grade, and we've been assessing 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students on those same standards, right? Now what we're hoping to do, what we're planning to do as early as mid-year this year is create content-specific assessments for students at the building level in science so that we can assess student progress in the content each year. Same goal. The same goal is we're still going to have mastered the standards by the time we finish 8th grade and take that PSSA, but we're going to chunk it in smaller pieces and make it more manageable and reasonable for students.
Who's creating those?
So we're working with Linkit to do that with us, and then our teachers are having some conversation and some discussions around designing those assessments. Okay, so the science PSSA is coming. We'll have data to share this time next year. Our PVAS data is phenomenal. It's phenomenal across the board. We are in the double blue range, like Art said. We're well.
First section, I couldn't find the dot. What is that?
And I guess so when we talk about PVAS, this is a measurement of individual student growth from year to year. Okay, so that's important to note. It's individual student growth. What it tells us is, are our students learning and growing? And the answer is yes, we are making progress with individual students. We absolutely are. Are our scores on the last 5 slides that you saw, are they where we want them to be? Not yet. But this is really positive because it says that what we're doing with our kids individually is working with students, and they are making progress and they are making growth.
What's that one dot in the green though? I don't know, that's low. I am joking. That's like when I asked my kid, like, what's this A minus?
Yeah, right? All right, so let's talk about some more data, but also what we're going to do about it. So if I can share with you that overall, our building has a goal of small group instruction, targeted small group instruction. It's one of the things that I've said to our teachers. Andrew, you can go to the next slide, thank you. We're going to focus on core instruction in the content areas, and with a plan that at least 75% of our students are making growth in the IXL data that we have, in the Linkit data that we have, and we're looking at growth of at least 1 grade level from from the beginning of this year to the end of this year. And we're doing that through targeted small group instruction in our classes. And I'll talk to you in a minute about what that looks like and how we're doing that, but that is a goal that we have across the board in every content area in our middle school for this year, is how do we target small group instruction to meet the needs of our students in our classes? And how do we use the data to design those small groups? Why small group instruction? I just highlighted a couple of things for you. It's giving us immediate and instant feedback on student learning. It's small group. It's targeted, differentiated support for the kids who need the most remediation and intervention in that moment in time. It's focusing on skills, and it's a research-based high-impact strategy. So some examples of what small group instruction is. So we've partnered with TLS, teaching, now I'm going to forget what teaching, learning, and succeeding.
Yeah.
And this is something that I pulled from their website, but these are just some examples of what small group instruction could look like in a classroom. This is not a comprehensive list, but I'll highlight a couple of them for you. So the traditional small group instruction, all students get the same assignment, but some students are working in a small group with the teacher for very individualized and specific targeted support, right? If we come all the way down to the bottom, relearn, review, and reveal, you've got 3 groups that are based on needs, so they're homogeneous groups. One group is going to work with a teacher, one group is reviewing a skill, and one group is enriching and extending their understanding because they're clearly mastering this concept or are demonstrating some level of proficiency that their classmates may not be demonstrating. So just some examples, but again, not a comprehensive list of every way small group instruction could look.
You should never pick me.
I got it. All right, well now go. All right, so I've got more data. I love data. So I've got more data. So we're going to talk about the IXL diagnostic. So in English and math, we use IXL, and this year we're actually implementing it in science as well. The diagnostic test is giving us immediate real-time data on where our students are, and then it's tailoring practice and providing feedback to kids, okay? So through IXL on a daily basis, for example, our math teachers are doing IXL for 10 or 15 minutes every day. 3 days a week, it's adaptive, so it's targeting the needs of the students based on the data that was assessed at the beginning of the year, and then it's modifying, and it's fluid, so it's modifying as the kids perform, right? 2 days a week, it's those 10 or 15 minutes in math class, again, just using this as an example, are spent reviewing and relearning or introducing or just revisiting topics that we are doing in class in that moment in time. So when we gave this diagnostic in English at the start of the school year, what this says is that 64.4% of our 6th grade students are where they need to be with 6th grade math already, right now. Okay, we have 64.4% understanding. 7th grade, we're about 50%, 8th grade a little below 50%. So the language that we're using is on or above. But again, what do we need to know to be successful in 8th grade math, or I'm sorry, English? And right now, 45.4% of our students have what they need to be successful. And so like I said, we've got some work to do. Math?
More work to do.
Oh, yeah, more work to do. So this is okay, but this is okay because this just says that the kids aren't where they need to be when they sit for the PSSA in May. Well, we wouldn't expect them to be where they need to be when they sit for the PSSA in May. We've got time to really drill down to some of the needs of the students, the levels of understanding, the missing pieces, and then target the small group instruction to meet their needs. So I'm not concerned by what I see here. It just says that we've got some work to do. The benchmark in science, so we did give an IXL benchmark in science this year, and we have about 26.9% of our students were proficient or advanced. This is internal, this is us, this is not the state. Remember, the state took a year off from PSSA data reporting, but we did give a Linkit benchmark to our students for science, and it really just tells us that we've got work to do here too, but these are the students, again, what I said to you in the beginning, I think is really important, is we are redesigning these assessments to be course and content specific versus it being the same assessment, measuring the same skills for every student 6th through 8th grade. Okay, I got more.
Can we go
Less
back?
data.
Can we go back?
Yeah.
And challenge Andrew to go back.
I feel like I went really far back.
Keep going. Again.
Oh,
Perfect. So and this could apply to math or the ELA.
Yeah.
The breakdown of, who's on pace and stuff. So is there or can you differentiate between like 7th grade class right now that's taking advanced math and those that aren't and see what those two numbers are independently? Or is it all kind of grouped together?
I'm sure you could be
so
split
like
out
a
the
class
classes.
diagnostic.
I'm sure yeah, the answer is yes, but I think that I would have to drill down to teacher specific for who's sitting in their classes to see, to pull that information that you're asking me for,
Yeah.
JP.
But
I'm just
doesn't
kidding.
IXL like adapt to the student?
It does.
Is like, so this is based on where the individual student is, like, it's not where
At this
8th
point in
grade
the
is.
year.
At this point in the year.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Based on,
You know what I
for
mean?
example, like.
Then it sets the
end of
pathway.
year-
yeah,
Similar to Freckle or Now I Ready. and
yeah.
So the higher level students would have started at a
Yeah.
higher level and
Correct.
the lower level students would have started at a lower level. And even starting at that level,
But if you're starting at the higher level, and you're still in the same grade as all the other students, isn't there still a difference?
well,
We're
yeah.
getting really philosophical here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow.
So,
We're
I
digging.
think if I heard what you said, so if, Andrea there comes in and her score's off the charts,
Yeah.
it's gonna place her in a pathway that may have higher level academics in math than here little Artie who, his score is two grade levels below. I'm gonna be starting at that point and moving forward with my pathway.
Right,
For her to be individualized.
Adria's path is already ahead of
Correct.
saying that maybe she's already met the 7th grade requirements. And poor Artie hasn't yet, obviously.
Right.
But hers are, I would expect hers to be higher than yours.
Correct. What
Right.
she's doing is different than me,
Correct.
much different, probably.
But if we're just
Based on that
comparing it,
description.
all 7th, I'm just picking 7th grade, all 7th graders on the same level though, I feel like maybe it can get skewed.
So I think that's,
Well, no, that's like the baseline of where they're at, where they're scoring at. So are they scoring above grade level, on grade level, below grade level, or far below grade level? So that's what that's showing. So those in the blue are showing that they're already scoring. That 30% of kids in 7th grade is already scoring above grade level with where they're being placed. So 30% of the kids are coming in and their pathway has them above grade level.
Right.
the use of this data is for the teachers, for individual students, which I think is what you're wondering.
Yeah, I just
This
wanted,
isn't to report out on how a grade level's doing necessarily. This is specifically used for teacher in the classroom diagnostic, and then that's how they would form the small group. So Andrea would be with her other smarties.
The other
who already
30%.
went.
And I'm with the.
Poor Artie. Artie's a better athlete. Hey.
so we got a football scholarship.
Yes, I think. Thank you for answering, helping to address the questions.
That makes sense.
So what is one thing that we are doing at the middle school? And we'll talk about a few other things also, but one of our action steps is to build data literacy. So we're using our MTSS meetings, those multi-tiered systems of support meetings, to focus and identify standards and skills for students to target that small group instruction. So I'm going to keep talking about small group instruction, but we're going to spend those meetings in our core departments looking at the data to really be very deliberate about where and who is getting these targeted small group interventions. Really, this is just a review. You can skip this, Andrea. This is just a review. Let me give you some examples of data that we would pull from IXL. So this is a math example. So our teachers know how to pull these reports from IXL. So remember, our students took an IXL assessment at the beginning of the year. They pull this report. It's called a Level Up Diagnostic Strand Analysis. And what we see is that 45 of our students in my class, so of the 60 students that I teach, 45 of them are below grade or far below grade. So I know I have to target and spend some time reviewing these skills on the number system, right? So what's one way, Andrea, you can go to the next slide, that we can do that? So there's this, it's an example of small group instruction. We call it the math, for math, obviously. The M is a teacher-led group. So the teacher is pulling a group of students together and working and reteaching skills, while two of the groups are working on spiraling activities and one group of students might be working on IXL practice that's tailored to meet their needs or address That's more of an independent activity where it's adaptive and addressing their needs. But this is one example of how we're utilizing small group in our math classrooms. In English, there's another IXL report. This is just an example. I can run this report in math also. I can run it for science for IXL, but this is an example of a report that's telling me that 9, I know it's small, that's why I drew that big pink arrow at the top. 9 of our students in this class are having a hard time with simile. Okay, this green down here, look at the text in bold, what does the simile reveal about Miguel? 9 of my students in my classroom did not get that. And what this report will do for me is if you look at the top, it'll tell me every skill that I've assessed where 5 or more of my students have not mastered or demonstrated proficiency on that skill. So I know this is something that I have to focus on. So how could we use small group instruction here? Well, I can pull a group of students together and we can work through the figurative language examples. I can be giving another group of students extension activities or again, adaptive activities and assignments through IXL. Oh, all right, so I'm gonna answer all of these questions and how are we gonna do, what are we gonna do better and how are we gonna fix some of this, right? As an administrator, I love being in the classroom and seeing what's happening in the classroom. And so one of my goals with my assistant principal is to make sure that I am in the classroom and I'm providing feedback to our teachers about what I see. So my goal is that I conduct at least 2 walkthroughs a year along with multiple classroom observations of our teachers. Formal observations of our teachers. And then their teacher goals, their LEA selected measure goals as part of their evaluation also requires that they submit to me at the end of the year evidence of small group instruction that they've utilized in their classroom. So I am asking them to submit artifacts and evidence of small group instructional activities that they've used to target the needs of the students in their rooms. Andrea, if you go to the next slide, we know that the middle school has these amazing resources called instructional coach and instructional specialists. So how are we utilizing them? I want you to think about it this way. The instructional coach is really working with the teachers to improve the instruction that is happening in our classrooms. So the instructional coach, I've got a goal set for this individual that says they're going to work with a minimum of 2 teachers in every department for at least 1 coaching cycle with 2 teachers in every department. So 2 math teachers. If it's more, it's great. But a coaching cycle is anywhere from 5 to 7 meetings, observations, lesson planning. It's a lot of time and investment in trying to improve the practice of what's happening in that classroom. We also have a lot of meetings during the day at the middle school with our teachers. So my instructional coach is pushing into those meetings with myself and my assistant principal, and we're talking to the teachers about professional learning. How do we use the data? What are we doing with the data? How do we design small group instruction in our classrooms? We're taking this time and we're pushing into these sessions and these conversations to really focus on Tier 1 instructional practices in our classrooms. We're also creating professional development days, faculty meetings. All of this is around looking at data and designing small group instruction for our students. And then finally, we have, she's very quick. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the clock. I'm quick, I'll go quick. And then at the very bottom down here, we've also got self-directed professional development. So we've been with the help of my instructional coach, we've been very deliberate about creating a newsletter, a bulletin board, just getting weekly emails, getting information out to teachers about opportunities for professional growth, again, focused on small group instruction. I've also got 2 instructional specialists, one in English and one in math, which is an amazing resource to have. If you think about it this way, they focus more on our students. So what are they doing to support our students? they are pushing into classes. So every session, every day, they're spending at least the last, let's say 2/3, 50%, last 66% of the class, they're pushing into classes and supporting the tier 2 kids that we've identified through all of this data that needs support. But we're pushing into the class, we're supporting those kids in the classroom and utilizing small group instructional strategies or whatever that looks like. The beginning of every session, we're also pulling our tier 3 kids out of class for 20 to 30 minutes every other day to support them with their needs. And these kids are coming out of Encore. So they're not missing their math or their English time. We're pulling them out because that's when I can get all of the 6th graders who need this level of support at the same time, for example. Oh, yeah. So, last slide, I promise. We are continuing to monitor and identify areas to target our small group instruction. We're utilizing our MTSS team and process to identify students through the data and then determining interventions for them. The one thing I neglected to say about those groups that we are pulling with our specialists is they're fluid. So students can place in and place out based on the data that we get in real time, because we want to address the kids who need it the most in that moment. We will continue with the push-in and the coach and the specialists into classrooms. We'll continue with the pull-out instruction, and we will continue a focus on professional development and professional learning pretty much in every meeting, every opportunity that we have throughout the year with our teachers and our staff.
Thank you.
I got one more question,
Yeah.
just quick. The formal observations and the walkthroughs that you're going to
Yes.
be doing, do you know what the cadence was before?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I do know, here's what I can tell you. I do know that at the high school, they are very committed to doing multiple walkthroughs of the classes.
Right.
I am too. But I also think there's a ton of value in spending an entire session in a classroom and observing what's happening from beginning to end. I'm not sure I'm going to see small group instruction every time I do a formal observation, but I may see more of it if I do an observation versus a 20 or 30-minute walkthrough
Right.
in a classroom. So I'm trying to get as many opportunities to see targeted interventions with students as possible.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm just curious.
And I would tell you that that is, from a formal observation perspective, they were doing just the people in that cycle. So, every 4 years you go back into clinical. And so it was 2 a year, 2 during the year. So this approach is everyone regardless of the cycle that you're assigned to.
Awesome.
Yeah, just so I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly. So before, they were just doing the ones in the cycle,
Correct.
not everybody.
Correct,
That's great.
correct.
Wow. Well,
So that means domains 2 and 3 in our world, which is instruction and classroom environment. We're not formally evaluated through the formal evaluation process.
I'm just trying to,
Walkthroughs were used.
just trying to understand the not doing everybody thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's
We're on the right
our
track
supervision,
now.
our supervision plan is cyclic in nature. It is, I mean, that's very typical.
And you don't need to do that every single year. I have a question. The strong push for small groups, is that coming from TTLS? Or you, or?
Yeah, I would say me. I think there's a ton of power in looking at the data and identifying interventions for students, and I was trying to make it, to be perfectly honest, manageable. So focusing on the IXL data for the math and the English in the departments where we have it. We're looking at Linkit data for social studies because we don't have IXL data, but targeting, like specifically looking at one assessment and then targeting small group instruction based on that. And IXL is adaptive and it's real time and we do it on a daily basis. I thought it was the most meaningful. and we could probably reap the most benefit from it.
Can I just also say, I think that I commend the focus, especially because it's a long block of time for direct type of instruction to be happening. So I think it, from a classroom facilitation perspective, I think focusing on small group instruction for all the things she said, but it's also more engaging and likely more cognitively engaging for kids.
Is it
to
the
not
middle
just-
school as a block?
Mhm.
Oh. Yeah, okay. I just, as a teacher, I recall having these Excel sheets that I created to have these diverse groupings, and I would take those CDT results and map them out, and like, it was exhausting, but I feel like using some Magic School to help create those groups, that might take some of the bite out of it.
It does, yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope that is successful. Can you, another question, can you just explain quick, sorry, the difference between a coach and an instructional specialist? Is that the TTLS different? No.
It sounded like one was for the teachers and one was for the students.
So this year, we have three positions. One, the way I look at it, first of all, they work with the students, they all work with students, right? The way I look at it is the two instructional specialists that I have, there is one math and there is one English. And they are focused on the student data, and they are working with our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students who aren't quite demonstrating proficiency, but need some more individualized attention and support. Our coach works very closely with me and with our curriculum office, and we're using that role to help us professionally develop our staff. So teaching them how to use the data, teaching them what to do with the data, modeling lessons, co-planning lessons, facilitating professional development. She's also in the classrooms, she's also working with kids, but she's also modeling instructional practices and strategies for our teachers.
Can I just, for the sake of clarity, our elementaries have district positions that are math, specialists and reading specialists. This was achieved through scheduling. Those were not, so that is a math teacher and an ELA teacher, but because of the enrollment, fluctuation, the way Mrs. Siegfried was able to schedule the building, freed these folks up to serve in the specialist role based on their areas of expertise.
Okay.
But if those sections are needed, those positions do not remain. So it's schedule dependent.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to mention, I read something about Tennessee schools saying they have this huge jump in their 3rd, 4th, 5th grade or something, and they, it's just like huge gains that are like, people are shocked to see. And they ascribe that to the data, tracking the data. I just sort of glanced through the article, but I was like, I'd be interested to know what that looked like. So feel free to look that up too. I will be looking it up.
Anything else?
So we're gonna hold on the last two items. We
I assume
roll
it's
them
not.
over and we'll
Yeah.
share them.
I assume it's not. So I apologize for going 10 minutes into the next one, but no, I think this is important stuff, so it's good that we do it. And thank you guys again, really appreciate the information.
Thank
These are some of my, I
Thank
think
you.
the most powerful ones. Okay, so motion to adjourn?
Motion?
So second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. If you're here for ad hoc, there was some homework from the last meeting.